I think that there are a lot of kind of misconceptions about things that you can thrift. Like, I romanticize thrifting certain things that I like vintage versions of, but in reality, these are all of the conclusions that I've come to from actually going and thrifting quite a lot over the last few years. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, my name's Phoebe. In this video, I'm going to talk about what I think you should thrift versus buy new. I'm going to elaborate on what I mean by that, because when I say thrift, I mean specifically going to a thrift store. What I think you can kind of count on finding going to a bunch of Goodwills or, you know, different thrift stores that you have around, versus when I say buy new, I do kind of mean you can still look on Depop or Poshmark or whatnot to find these certain things. It's not that I necessarily think you need a newly manufactured version of these. It's just that I think they're going to be harder to find at a thrift store. So I guess what I really mean is what I think you should thrift versus what I think you should search for online or at a brick and mortar new store. Does that make sense? And I'll specify when I think there's something that you should buy on Depop rather than buy new or at a thrift store. But my main distinction is what I think you can find at a thrift store near you, just any given thrift store, versus what I think you should save the time and spend a little extra money buying from somewhere online or somewhere that isn't a thrift store. You get it now. I'm separating these into categories. So my first category is tops, and tops that I think you can thrift are basic camis. So spaghetti strap camis. You've seen me wear them a million times because you know I prefer a cami to a basic like ribbed tank with inch thick straps or whatever. But basic camis you can always find at a thrift store. I would never ever spend my money on a new cami from like Target or whatever. I would always look in thrift stores. They have a million of them. Also, high neck tops, like certain basic tank tops that you can either turn backwards to make high neck. If it's like scoop neck in the front and a high back, you can always turn around to make a high neck top. Those, and like any grandma-esque top, grandma-esque blouses, grandma-esque button-ups, or just a very grandma-esque top that you can make super chic in your own way. If you like that kind of style, I think you can always find unique versions of that at the thrift store. The other thing that I will always try to thrift before I will buy it new is tops that are in the lingerie section. So like silk tops or corsety tops. I'm not a corset girl, but if I were, I would thrift them. Tops that you can find in the lingerie section of the thrift store, or even in the PJ section of the thrift store. Even like slip dresses and slip skirts are very easy to thrift at pretty much any lingerie section in any thrift store you go to. You'll find a bunch. Another thing you can always find is a graphic tee. And this is something that I can see you finding better versions of on Depop if you're really into graphic tees. If you just want something kind of like cozy and to throw on whenever you need a t-shirt, I would definitely just buy one at the thrift store. But if you're like a graphic tee person and you have an affinity for graphic tee and like old designs, I would maybe look on Depop and Poshmark and stuff like that. But I would almost never buy a graphic tee new. You can find so many. I think the only reason you would want to buy one new is if you're for some reason in a big rush to find one. Otherwise, there are millions of secondhand graphic tees available. And if you have the patience to look through a thrift store, you can buy them for like $2. And you can find some really cool and unique ones if you have the patience and wherewithal to stick with it for a while. Also, men's button downs. Any kind of like loose button down to either, you know, tuck into pants or just throw on over a bathing suit, wear open, wear closed, oversized, anything like that. Men's button downs are always something that you can thrift. Menswear in general, men's sweaters even. I find myself thrifting men's sweaters more often than I thrift women's sweaters. I think menswear in general is very easy to thrift. And if you are someone who likes wearing menswear, I think that you have no reason to buy menswear new, especially if you are not a man or you don't identify as a man. I think that thrifted menswear is always going to be better and cuter than buying menswear new. I don't think I could ever see myself going to a menswear brick and mortar store or even an online menswear website and ordering menswear rather than just going to a thrift store and looking through the entire menswear section. Another category of tops that I think you can always thrift is cardigans. Fitted button-up cashmere cardigans, like nice fitted ones like that. And winter coats, like long trenches, I think are easy to find at the thrift store. And I don't think that I would spend hundreds of dollars on a brand new trench without looking in thrift stores first. Tops that I think you should buy new are basic tanks, like the ones I talked about earlier that are not camisole tank tops, but you know, like your basic ribbed, thicker strap, basic fitted tank tops, I think are so much easier to buy new than thrifted. You maybe once in a while will find one that is a good fit thrifted, but they tend to look a little bit worn. I think because it's usually a ribbed material rather than camis are mainly just like crisp cotton. A basic tank that's ribbed can tend to pill if it's older. And so I think thrifting those, you can tell that they're old, and not in like a cute, fun, vintagey way, just in like a old tank top way. And because they're not that expensive to buy new, I think I always would opt to find the best version of a basic tank that I can new and spend the extra money to purchase those and have them for a really long time. Also, most of the time I would say women's sweaters and women's jumpers I buy new, or you know, on Depop or whatever, rather than from the thrift store. For some reason, again, I think that even if I can find a cute sweater that's the cut I like at the thrift store, it does look really old, and again, not in a cute way, in a way that it's like pilling and it's a little bit dirty and maybe has some holes in it. You can definitely find cute vintage sweaters that are really well made and stand the test of time if you can find like a cashmere one or like a woven one that's not as obviously pilling and old. I think you can find some cute ones, but just most of the time, if I want a nice winter sweater, I'm going to probably invest in a really high quality one that starts out brand new and wears well with age over the next however many years, rather than thrifting one that is already old, already doesn't look super clean and nice, and just looks like a thrifted sweater. There are some times that I like the aesthetic of an older piece, but sometimes it just makes me feel a little bit less put together. And I would say women's sweaters, like more feminine sweaters, are a piece I will always vote to buy new. Another category of tops that I think is always best to buy new are like statement tops, or tops with unique cuts, unique shapes, and specific feminine details. I don't know really how to explain what I'm talking about, but I'll put photos up so that you can see what I mean. These are tops that like, they're really nice to have in your wardrobe for when you want to look put together and you don't really want that aesthetic of wearing a bunch of thrifted things. These are just tops that I think you'd have to have amazing luck with if you're looking in a thrift store, whereas there are so many new designers that make these tops really well. And again, these are ones, if you have a specific one in mind, you can totally search for it on Depop first before actually buying it new. But in terms of going to a thrift store, I don't really think you can rely on getting these kinds of tops while you're there. Moving on to bottoms. Bottoms that I think you can count on thrifting are suit pants. First of all, I think 90% of my suit pants, actually I probably don't even own that many. Maybe I own like 7 pairs of suit pants or trousers or whatever you like to call them. And I think only one of them is a pair that I bought new. The rest of them I've thrifted, and still to this day when I go to the thrift store, I have to stop myself from buying more because I already have enough. I already have as many as I could possibly need, but they're just so easy to thrift. There are so many nice ones all the time that I have to stop myself. So please, if you want a pair of suit pants, definitely look in your thrift stores first before even looking on Depop. I really don't think you need to spend more than $15 on a really nice pair of trousers. They get donated all the time. Next thing I think you can thrift is capris. I have not bought a pair of capris new besides a pair of like Lululemon capri leggings. All of the capris that I've played with have been thrifted, and tons of people donate them because they haven't been in style for a long time, and if you're not super into fashion, you probably are still over them. They're a very specific trend, and so a lot of people got rid of them. Not a ton of people are buying them, and with a really specific trend like that, I think it's best to thrift it first and play around with it and see if you like it before you invest in a new, more expensive pair. I don't think there's necessarily any reason to buy capris new, even if you do love capris. I've found great luck finding them at thrift stores. But yeah, that's what I would say is if you want to experiment with capris, definitely at least at first thrift a couple pairs and play around with them before you commit to buying a new pair. Next category of bottoms are cargo pants and like cargo adjacent pants. So maybe it's not necessarily a full like true cargo pant with a bunch of pockets and stuff, but cotton pants like that are a little bit more structured and like crunchy. You know what I mean? Those I can always find at the thrift store. Again, because they're not like considered super nice. Like people get rid of them a lot. Nobody's like really attached to their cargo pants. I feel like nobody really invests a ton in them. So people are really willing to donate them back to thrift stores. I just find that there are a lot of them there every time I go. Same with certain athletic shorts and pants. Not necessarily ones I would actually work out in, but like if you want to play with the vibe of styling sporty pants or sporty shorts in your like actual everyday outfits, I think that you can pretty easily find them thrifted. You know, the Adidas track pants trend is like, I guess still kind of going strong. I have found Adidas track pants in the men's section of pretty much every thrift store I've ever gone to. So I would definitely look in thrift stores first if you want to play with that trend or play with that look before you spend, you know, $100 on a pair of actual Adidas track pants or like any sort of athletic shorts from like a nice new athletic brand. I don't think is necessary if you just want to play with them in your like daily outfits. Also, linen/beach pants I've had surprising luck with thrifting. I have thrifted some really nice pair of linen pants, like true linen pants, and also cotton pants that kind of read linen or look a little bit beachy. I've had surprising luck with. Kind of hit or miss, but I would say look in a thrift store first before you decide to buy a pair new. And on to the bottoms that I think you should buy new and not really waste your time or waste much time looking in a thrift store for. And my first one is gonna surprise you because it is jeans and denim shorts. I feel like when you think of thrifting, you automatically think of like thrifting a pair of vintage Levi's, and like people really romanticize thrifting jeans. I do not have luck thrifting jeans. I go to a thrift store and they're all like skinny jeans or just horrible cuts that are so unflattering and not in like a cool girl fashion way, just like bad cuts of jeans. I would have to be having an extremely lucky day to find a pair of jeans that are even okay, let alone ones that like would become my favorite pair. On the contrary though, I don't think you necessarily have to buy your jeans brand new. I think this is where Depop comes in handy. This is where Whatnot comes in handy. This is where going to in-person flea markets come in handy. A lot of vendors will collect vintage Levi's, vintage Wranglers and Rollas, and like all of the classic jeans brands you've heard of. People collect vintage ones and sell them at in-person flea markets like that, or sell them at true vintage stores, like curated vintage stores rather than places like Goodwill. I really like buying jeans new as well. I don't necessarily always think you need to buy a vintage pair for it to be a good pair of jeans. But in terms of going to a place like Salvation Army or Goodwill or ARC or whatever local thrift stores you have, I do not think that you should expect to find a nice pair of jeans. Same exact thing with denim shorts, I would say. Skirts are 50-50. I think that if you want a basic, like a black mini skirt. Sometimes basics like those that are so common you think are going to be easy to thrift because it's like, yeah, what thrift store wouldn't have just a black mini skirt? That's like the most basic thing you can look for. But those are the things that I have the least luck with. I think when you're thrifting, you have to be in the mindset to be okay with going a little bit rogue and like finding some unique things rather than a perfect basic. If you want a perfect staple of a black mini skirt or a gray long skirt, I think those are things that you're going to have to buy new or, you know, scour the secondhand apps for. If you want some sort of fun, vintagey kind of statement skirt that might be an awkward length, but maybe in a fun way, I think those are the kinds of skirts that you can thrift. On to shoes. The only type of shoe that I can always count on thrifting, and I don't think I will ever buy new, is a kitten heel. You're in luck because kitten heels are still so trendy, and it just so happens that they're one of the easiest types of shoes to thrift, in my opinion. Every pair of kitten heels I've had have been thrifted. I've never bought a pair new. Every thrift store I go to, I can pretty pretty much find a couple pairs of decently cute kitten heels that are in my size. It's the same thing with suit pants. I kind of have to stop myself because I have enough kitten heels, but they're just so easy to thrift that it's hard to look away sometimes. Boots, I would say, are 50-50. If you're looking for like a nice, you know, going out pointed heel or pointed toe tall boot, I actually have been able to thrift a few pairs. I have a brown pair and a black pair that I thrifted on the exact same day, and they were like $2 each, and they're the nicest pairs of boots I've really owned. With something like a Western like cowboy boot or something like a moto boot, I think you would be more likely to find good ones on apps like Depop and stuff. I don't think you can really count on finding those at thrift stores. Again, those are things where you romanticize finding a nice pair of vintage boots at the thrift store, but in reality it is a little bit harder, kind of hit or miss. I would look at thrift stores first, and then I would look at Depop before I would consider buying a pair of boots new. In the buy new category, if you're a ballet flats person, I would personally buy those new. Soft ballet flats, I feel like get dirty so easily. Like anytime I've seen a pair of flats at the thrift store, they just look straight up gross. I'm sure you could find a pair on the apps like Depop and stuff that are way more gently worn and high quality, and if you have a specific brand in mind, you can search on Depop first before you buy them new, but I would not count on finding ballet flats at the thrift store. Same with sneakers. I pretty much always buy sneakers new. I think those are worth the investment of buying them when they're like super crisp and then wearing them in yourself and having them for their entire life cycle. Sneakers that I find at the thrift store are very worn and very dirty and just like so unappealing to me. I never want to even try them on. And then same with flip-flops. Flip-flops are ones that you can find like basic black ones at the thrift store, but they're gonna be pretty worn. And for something that's not that expensive, again, I think it's worth it to spend a little bit extra money to have them for their entire life cycle. I would just buy a pair of black Havaianas flip-flops, or, you know, whatever color you want. Just a pair of plain Havaianas flip-flop will always be my choice over thrifting an older random pair of them. On to accessories. Something you can always count on thrifting is a baseball cap. If you want a baseball cap, don't buy one new. There's literally no reason to. Even I feel like buying one on Depop would be a little bit overkill. There are always hundreds within a 5-mile radius of your house. Same with belts. There are always tons of belts at every thrift store I go to. I can usually find 1 or 2 decent ones anywhere I go. Another thing that I just like wouldn't really even consider buying new is a belt. In terms of jewelry, I think silver is easier to thrift than gold. I think gold, it's hard to tell if they're costume jewelry. It's hard to tell if they're plated. It's hard to tell if they're filled. And if they're solid gold, like in a case at a thrift store, usually you have to be willing to put in the time to go buy jewelry cleaner and clean them. Whereas silver things, it's more likely that people will be fine just donating their silver jewelry because it's not as valuable as gold jewelry. So you can usually find more like true sterling silver jewelry at the thrift than you can true gold jewelry. Things like bracelets and watches, I would say, are a lot easier to thrift than other types of jewelry. This silver cuff that I wear all the time is thrifted. On the contrary, what I think you should buy new are earrings and necklaces. Earrings seem kind of like unappealing to me to thrift unless I like know that I have jewelry cleaner at home. And even then, it's like risky to clean jewelry that you've thrifted because you don't usually know for certain that it's solid gold or that it's sterling silver. And if something's just costume jewelry or it's just plated and you put it in a harsh jewelry cleaner, it can completely just like tarnish it and ruin it. So I don't usually like to take those kinds of risks. Necklaces are another one I don't really have much luck thrifting and would rather just buy new. I missed one that I think you should thrift, and that is purses. Purses are so easy to thrift, especially like little ones. So easy to thrift. I cannot state enough that most of the cute purses I've found have been at cheap thrift stores like Goodwill. Going back to accessories I think you should buy new. Another one that might be kind of surprising is sunglasses, because again, I think it's something we romanticize as thrifting vintage sunglasses, but I just don't have much luck. I feel like when I go to the thrift, all the sunglasses are like in a bin together and they're all just like basically broken. Like the screws are loose, they're scratched, they're dirty, they're gross. I think that Depop and Poshmark and stuff like that is a good place to find vintage glasses if you want true vintage sunglasses. But besides that, I think I would always vote to just buy a pair new personally. Take care of them yourself so that they don't end up scratched and kind of gross. Also, I don't know if you would consider this an accessory, but swimwear I always buy new. new. I don't even really look for secondhand swimwear on Depop or anything like that. I don't usually have luck. Even when I like search a particular brand on Depop, I don't usually find what I'm looking for. I think it's just easier to save the time and spend a little extra money and buy swimwear new, especially because swimwear is definitely something that has a shorter lifespan, because the more you wear it, the more it like genuinely wears out. So I think it's worth it to buy it in the beginning of its life. Pick exactly what kind of swimwear you like that fits you perfectly, rather than looking in thrift store or even looking on Depop. And the last thing I think you should buy new are winter hats. Pretty much any hat that isn't a baseball cap, I think you should buy new. Baseball caps stay in pretty good condition for a really long time, but if you're into beanies, I think old beanies tend to start pilling and feeling a little bit gross. Any other like unique kind of winter hat, I think is going to be really hard to find at the thrift unless you just like aren't looking for it and you happen to find a really good one. Hats kind of skeeve me out in general to thrift just because of like lice and stuff. And with baseball caps, you can really easily just throw them in the wash with the rest of your clothes. With other kinds of like more structured hats that you can't do that with, I probably wouldn't thrift them. Last thing, I didn't know what category to put this in. I guess it's its own category, is dresses. And like I said, pretty much the only dress I could count on thrifting is like a slip dress from the PJ lingerie area of the thrift store. Again, if you want like a vintagey kind of dress, you would have more luck going to a true vintage store that has like nice old like designer pieces or just nice dresses that are vintage, or looking on Depop. Going to the thrift, I just rarely find a dress that's like cute and fits and is like a normal cut and doesn't look super awkward. If you have an occasion that you need a dress for, I would probably just buy one new or look on Depop. I don't think you're gonna find one in any sort of timely manner going to an in-person thrift store. And that is pretty much all I have for you. If I missed anything, please leave it in the comments below and I'll try to answer. These are opinions that I've formed over the last few years of actually thrifting. I think that there are a lot of kind of misconceptions about things that you can thrift. Like I said, before I started thrifting a lot, I would have thought that like jeans are something you can thrift, and that like sunglasses and vintage boots, like I romanticized thrifting certain things that I like vintage versions of. But in reality, these are all of the conclusions that I've come to from actually going and thrifting quite a lot over the last few years. So yeah, if you have any more to add or any more to ask about, please comment below. And if you like this video and found it helpful at all or entertaining, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you want to. And with that, I'll see you in a few days with another one. Bye guys.